You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. I do got to talk about this the third-degree murder charge against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. The killing of George Floyd has been dropped. Judge Peter Cahill denied the motion to dismiss the other two charges against him. Chauvin still faces the higher charge of second-degree unintentional murder and a second-degree manslaughter charge. Cahill also denied the motions to dismiss charges against the other now former Minneapolis police officers. They were charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. That again, this is one of those things where, again, we're talking about judges here, Erica. We're talking about judges. Why judges matter. This judge made a decision.
Yep. Dr. Carr just laid it out quickly. Everybody should replay that for other people, because this same judge is up for election. He's on the ballot 2020 Minnesota. So make sure that you vote his ass out. Additionally, this same judge ensured that evidence from a 2019 arrest of our deceased brother, who was lynched before the entire globe, would be entered into evidence. Mind you, we have Attorney General Keith Ellison that is prosecuting this case. And let me tell you, it looks very much so likely, as we think about that these folks will not go to trial until March, that there's going to be a chipping away. So when people say that their vote does not matter, listen, your very life is on the ballot. And if you don't live in Minnesota, there are judges that are just like the judge, Peter Cahill, in Minnesota, that's on the ballot in your community. So do understand, not voting is really voting for your own position in this country. Life or death is on the ballot. And so I think that this is something that people need to be paying very much so close attention to as people go voting early, or they're voting on November 3rd. Look at all of those judges that are on the ballot. Just do a simple Google search and see some of the ways that their cases have turned out. Google up so you can see an image of what those folks look like, and then, in fact, make your vote accordingly.
Reese.
Yeah, also, I mean, in a lot of cases, there are multiple judges on the ballot. And so maybe there are 5 judges and you get to select 4. Still do a Google search and make sure that you're selecting the right 4 out of the 5 judges. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. The one silver lining to me on the lower charge being dismissed is that it kind of eliminates that cop out of, like, you know, because a lot of times in these cases, the cops, if they are convicted at all, they're convicted of the lowest possible charge. And so that's one small silver lining that I have to say about it. But going back to the judiciary thing, just one last point I want to make on that. You know, Erica and Dr. Carr laid it out brilliantly, is that with the Supreme Court, I don't know if you guys have noticed, they have this shadow docket. And as Dr. Carr mentioned, they have these opinions that are now unsigned. And so there is a danger here where these folks have now this massive amount of power, and they don't even feel like they owe us an explanation. Yep. They're not even going to bullshit us around. They're just going to have this shadow ruling and go on about their business. So going back to Roland's point, then I'll wrap it up. That's why the Democrats, there are no rules anymore. The Supreme Court, when they overturned the Alabama decision and didn't bother to release the vote tally, it was only the dissent that was signed by 3 people. There are no rules. So when you have the power, you better damn well seize it and make the change that we need to make.
Final comment, Greg.
That's right. Reese is right. They're not even going to tell you why. You know why? Because legally they can't explain it. Ask any law professor. They can't explain. They're just going to say, just put the vote up. And Erica is absolutely right as well. You got to come in here and vote intelligently. And Roland, as you said, not only Kathy Mizell, 33, Benjamin Breton is 39. The one who's replacing Justin Walker, who McConnell put on the D.C. circuit. He's going to be in the Western District of Kentucky. Christy Johnson just turned 40. She is coming out of Mississippi, the Southern District. Taylor McNeil is 37. They're going to put him on the Southern District. All these cats in their 30s. And so what happened in Minneapolis and what happened in Minnesota is clear evidence that it does matter. The Democratic Party is not the savior of Black people. But what Erica said is essentially very important. Our rights are always on the ballot. Please understand that our rights are always on the ballot. And what Erica has said is absolutely correct. You have to vote as if your rights are always on the ballot. And if the Democratic Party is the tackle dummy you use to push into the system, then use them. But they're not, we don't need nobody caping for us. We have to invade and advance our best interest. The third-degree murder charge, a manslaughter charge, that's typically a charge, as we know, like you shooting into a crowd. It was going to be a stretch anyway. The rest of the charges survived. But like you said, we got to look very close on how this judge is going to ride herd on jury selection, on everything. Are they going to change the venue? And so please, everyone, listen to Reese, and please listen to Erica on this issue. It's time to be smart.
Yep.
Take the D and R off. Put the B on Black.
Yeah.
Folks, there's a reason. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, the folks at Seek.com, Black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They, of course, a virtual reality company. You can check out their content at Seek.com, CEEK.com. You can do so, of course, with these VR headsets. You can look at it, of course, on your regular device or your pad or your computer. But if you want to experience being in the room, you can use this headset right here. All you simply do is just pop in your cell phone in here, pop it on, and then put this headset on, and you can literally experience their content in virtual reality. And so allows for you to do a 360-degree view of the room. But also, folks, they have the 360-degree 4D headphones right here. These are Bluetooth headphones. They have complete surround sound in terms of as you hear the particular music. Gamers love them as well when they're playing their games. And so it's just phenomenal bass in these headphones as well. You can get one or both devices at Seek.com using this promo code RMVIP 2020, RMVIP 2020. So we certainly thank the folks at Seek.com for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible, folks. Stocks are soaring, and most black people are missing out on this. Now, when Donald Trump touts his economic gains, he usually refers to the stock market. The reality is only 33.5% of black households own stocks in 2019, according to the Federal Reserve. Among white households, the ownership rate is nearly 61%. Hispanics and other minorities, those numbers are even less. So stocks have nothing to do with the black economy. Joining me now is America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens. Deborah, we're talking about, again, we're talking about Ice Cube's contract with Black America. We're talking about economics. We're talking about Trump's platinum plan. I call the aluminum foil plan. We're talking about the Biden plan as well. The reality is this: when we are talking about African Americans and economics and how we have been left out of so many different areas, to Rena's point, you have to look at the jobs that we're in. You have to look at our disposable income. You have to look at, do we have the ability to be able to take $1,000 or $5,000 and put it in the stock market? Look, the folk out here who are getting rich are the individuals, frankly, who own homes, who likely have those homes paid off. Individuals who, with the amount of money they're making, the reality is you cannot have a discussion about black people in the stock market and completely ignore racism, redlining, and discrimination in hiring, in housing, in corporate America, in government, all of that, it all is intertwined.
It is. It's systemic. And, the truth is, to your last guest point, one of the things that COVID has made really clear is how many Black folks are considered essential workers. So essential workers typically are, the people in the front lines, the people serving food, the people making sure buildings are open. And so as a result of being concentrated in what are pretty much low earner roles, you don't have those benefits. You don't have access to an employer sponsored 401k, let alone someone matching, right? So systemically, that's part of the issue. In order to invest, you have to feel like you have enough discretionary income so that you can, afford to put your money at risk and see it go up and down. But I think what was really interesting in the article was talking about the fact that even high income earner African Americans have a tendency to what are risk averse, right? Don't want to see their money go up and down, are more likely to be invested in real estate or insurance products. And so at the end of the day, there are just a couple of things going on. I mean, the stock market is not the economy. And yet, I don't think what many people, I think what many people don't understand is that the reason that the stock market is making these new heights has nothing to do with companies making a lot of earnings and more to do with monetary policy. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that basically the Fed is keeping interest rates really, really low, and there's nowhere for the money to go. Couple that with the fact of this most recent tax cut by this administration, which made basically if you own stocks or capital gains, you really benefited from it. So, and if you think about it, Roland, the last time I was on your show, we were discussing the fact that an NFL player who was a millionaire went into an investment firm and wanted to be considered a high net worth client, and they denied him access.
Yeah, that was a case out of Arizona, J.P. Morgan out of Arizona.
Right, and so it is systemic. What I know to be true is that every day a person of color, a Black person, reaches out to a financial services firm, and because we don't have what are perceived to be enough assets, or don't know the right questions to ask, we're denied access. And so there's so many layers underneath here that I don't think were even covered in the article. And people wonder why Black folks are skeptical of these institutions. Well, it only takes an example like that NFL player doing everything that he can, actually moving $800,000 in assets, and yet still he was denied.
Well, and last question here, that the thing I need folk to understand, and I've got somebody here that the folks are like, it's easy to do stocks. You can buy stock for as little as $1, and it's simple. No, it's not that simple. Okay, it's just simply not that simple, because you gotta know what the hell you're buying. You gotta know what you're investing in. All sort of stuff along those lines. But the thing that people don't want to deal with this is that and again, I go back to these competing plans with Trump and Biden, and Ice Cube is absolutely right. No one plan goes far enough. But I can tell you which one goes a hell of a lot further than the other. I can tell you what's a BS plan, which is Trump's so-called platinum plan, which is embarrassing in itself by naming it a platinum plan for Black folks. Biden's plan goes further. But the thing for us as African Americans, we don't have to settle just for what Biden has put down on paper. I use Biden's plan as a marker. That's
Here's
what
I want to say.
That's a marker.
We have to save ourselves. I mean, if we know nothing else in the past 4 years, it is clear that even what we perceived as being allies, or buying into the American dream and thinking that if we did all the right things, if we got a college education, a degree, if we had that six-figure career, that things will open up for us. And the truth is that so much of the lack of ownership of stocks and not participating in this most recent move in the stock market has a lot to do with the fact that most people have someone to show them how to invest.
Right.
You know, I am somewhat taken aback by the number of people who are using apps and have absolutely no idea what they're investing in. And so my fear is thinking that things are simple, investing in the moment the market goes down, then you become afraid and you say, oh, well, that didn't work, right? So, I mean, I guess the point that I want to make, Roland, and the reason that I started Wealthy You because we need to have a fundamental understanding of how the financial markets work and how to use the same knowledge, insight, and intellect that we use as consumers. We really have to learn how to use that intel and begin to invest in those same companies. And what you have to do is have a basic knowledge of how to do so. And we're simply not getting access to that through formal education because typically this is something that is taught from our family or someone in your family kind of says, okay, you know, I'm going to take you along. Let's start your first brokerage account. That is not happening. But, you know, the fact is that even when we do seek help, we're simply not being let in with open arms and shown the ropes.
Absolutely. Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach. How can folks reach you?
Well, they can go to my website, wealthyu.com. And by the way, talking about learning how to invest, Roland, we've got a masterclass going on tomorrow all day, so they can just hit our website if they want more information.
All right. Sounds great. Folks, go check it out for some great information. We appreciate it, Deborah Owens. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks so much, Roland.
All right, folks. Back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, the folks at civic.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They, of course, a virtual reality company. You can check out their content at civic.com, CEEK.com. You can do so, of course, with these VR headsets. You can look at it, of course, on your regular device or your pad or your computer. But if you want to experience being in the room, you can use this headset right here. All you simply do is just pop in your cell phone in here, pop it on, and then put this headset on, and you can literally experience their content in virtual reality. And so allows for you to do a 360-degree view of the room. But also, folks, they have the 360-degree 4D headphones right here. These are Bluetooth headphones. They have complete surround sound in terms of as you hear the particular music. Gamers love them as well when they're playing their games. And so it's just phenomenal bass in these headphones as well. You can get one or both devices at seek.com using this promo code RMVIP 2020, RMVIP 2020. So we certainly thank the folks at seek.com for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Right. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. A grand juror who heard evidence in the Breonna Taylor probe said yesterday that the grand jury didn't agree that the fatal shooting was justified. Now, this came after a Kentucky judge ordered records in the proceedings released to show if public elected officials are being honest. In a statement, grand juror number 1, as a person has been identified, said that the only shootings by Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron was wanton endangerment. Former Louisville police officer, Detective Brett Hankinson, was indicted last month on that charge for firing shots into the apartment of Taylor's neighbors. Now again, Daniel Cameron came out and he said that any number of things and gave the impression that this is what the grand jury decided. But that is not what this grand juror is now revealing. Let's go to my panel. A. Scott Baldwin, former chair, National Bar Association Political Action Committee. Robert Patillo, Executive Director, Peachtree Street Project. And Kelly Bethea, communication strategist. Scott, I will start with you. To hear this grand juror come out with this statement here, basically what it shows is Daniel Cameron is a damn liar, and he tried to pull the wool over the face of everyone and not wanting us to know what really happened in that grand jury proceeding.
Well, yes and no. As soon as we found out it was not an investigative grand jury, then you knew whatever the prosecutor puts in before the grand jury, they're going to vote on. He didn't put in everything. He didn't put in all the witnesses. He put in what he thought he could prove. And so essentially, this investigation, this commission, the specialty, if you will, simply wasn't special at all. It was like any other prosecutor putting in a grand jury what they believe that they can prove. And so that's not justice for Breonna Taylor. That's not reality, if you will. He chose witnesses who said the police announced themselves. There are 10 others that said that they didn't. That's a huge fact and a huge difference. He didn't put those 10 witnesses in. And so this just simply confirms what we suspected or what we knew already. There needs to be a new prosecution or a new special prosecutor, and two, a new grand jury, because what they didn't present, including murder charges or even manslaughter charges, that needs to be presented. And let the grand jury figure it out.
Look, bottom line here, Robert, again, Daniel Cameron tried to think all of us were boo-boo the fool. He comes out with this news conference. He makes this announcement, all this grandstanding, when the reality is he operated more as the defense attorney for these cops.
Well, normally grand jury proceedings are secret. Normally they're not recorded. Normally this information never comes out. And so the question is, how many other times has this happened under his watch and under other prosecutors' watch? That's why we have a need for federal legislation and federal intervention in local prosecutions. This is why during the Obama administration there were so many consent decrees entered into between the federal government and local law enforcement. Because part of the issue that we run into is, simply put, that local biases and the predilections of the prosecutor determine what justice is in this country. There is no hard set fact pattern which can ensure that we will get justice if one of us is killed or murdered. And it's completely incumbent upon either the local district attorney or the state's attorney, depending on your jurisdiction, or the attorney general in the state to bring justice. And in this case, because we do not have an operational civil rights division of the Justice Department, there is no hope for federal intervention either. What Mr. Cameron did was pick and choose the charges that he will present, and instead of allowing a jury of our peers to decide whether or not these officers were guilty of murder, he made the unilateral decision that he wasn't even going to bring up the subject. So, of course, a special prosecutor should be appointed. Of course, the case should be reopened, and we should look at it again. And also, these indictments do not have to come from a grand jury. They can come from a preliminary hearing in front of a judge where the information was produced. The prosecution announces in open court what the charges are, what the evidence is, and a judge can decide in open court in front of the entire community whether or not charges will go forward. So there are various methods within the law by which we can address these issues, but I think what we all can realize from this is that a miscarriage of justice has happened and something has to be done to remedy it.
This, though, is the problem that people have with district attorneys. And the issue here is not, if we get a black DA, things will change. This is a black attorney general, but he's also a right-wing Republican. And so this is what people mean by having progressive district attorneys, progressive attorney generals, and the word progressive has never been used with Republicans.
Well, the saying goes, all skin folk and kinfolk, and that rings true, especially in this case. I mean, we saw with our own eyes exactly what Daniel Cameron thinks of his job, thought of this case, and really thinks of Black people in general by being so callous and frankly reckless with his power as prosecutor to have a grand jury hearing. Like my colleague on this panel have said previously, a grand jury is supposed to be a positive tool for the prosecutor to basically lay out all the facts that they have and make their case without any interruption or opposition in the room. Daniel Cameron used that to his advantage, but not in the best way in the interest of the victim, who is Breonna Taylor in this case. I agree with Robert when he talked about the preliminary hearing method. I personally thought that would have been a better method in this case, considering how public it was, considering the outrage that the community and the country at large really had towards this case, and rightfully so. I find that Daniel Cameron's usage of the grand jury proceedings was actually insidious by way of what we saw the outcome to be, being that now we know that he didn't even present all the evidence there was. He really did do the job of a defender, public defender, or just outside of his office. He was not working in the best interest of the victim, which to me says that he was not doing his job at all.
So, all right, Scott. So what next? I mean, well, first of all, hold on. No, wait. So here's the question. Can there be another grand jury? Who actually impanels that grand jury? This was the Attorney General acting as a special prosecutor. Or do we have to simply accept what this grand jury went with and just say, oh, well, wanton endangerment, let's see what happens?
There certainly can be another grand jury. There certainly can be another special prosecutor. But my concern about the case...
Wait. But you didn't fully answer the question. If it can be, who actually makes that decision?
It would be the Attorney General. It would be the local prosecutor or the governor in the state of Kentucky.
So you're saying that, because a grand jury was impaneled here that was led by the Kentucky Attorney General as special prosecutor, you're saying that the district attorney could say, I'm going to impanel a second grand jury and I will present the evidence to the grand jury.
Yeah, or the governor could appoint another special prosecutor. It's all about political will. But you see, what happens with the prosecutor, whether it's the AG or the district attorney, is on one hand, they're going to argue, this is the counter argument. If I do an investigatory grand jury and they want to bring 3 counts of murder against the police officers, and the facts as I know them as a prosecutor and with my discretion, if I can't make that out, why am I presenting that and going to go to trial and know I'm going to lose under the law, whether it's a jury or a judge dismisses the charges? What do I do about that? I'm not making a case for the Black Attorney General in Kentucky. What I'm saying is that's the tension and the struggle that we've got to manage through as lawyers and judges. If you give it to the grand jury or you do a preliminary hearing, you still get all the evidence out. Let the judge decide or let another grand jury decide, but at least it's all in there. What bugs you most about this case is that all the facts haven't been presented and all of the decisions haven't been made on all the facts. That's what needs to happen here.
Robert.
Well, look, prosecutors bring bullshit cases to trial all the time. About 90% of the criminal justice system is based on that. They don't want to, though. There are plenty of black men in jail right now on BS charges from a BS grand jury and a BS prosecutor where they were able to convince the jury based on some factor that they are guilty. So this idea that somehow they would not present a case because they didn't think they could win, that's most of what prosecutors do. As a defense attorney, I will say, present cases they know that either they should have pled or that they could not have won. He had no political will to do so. His interest was in protecting those officers, and that is why he presented the case as necessary. Because what we see from the grand jury is, this grand juror who's come forward is, he didn't even give the grand jury the opportunity to consider the questions of murder, to consider manslaughter, to consider wanton homicide, to consider criminal neglect of duty and those sorts of things. So I think what has to happen, and we saw this in the Ahmaud Arbery case here in Georgia, where you had the first prosecutor punt, you had a second prosecutor punt, you had a third prosecutor ready to punt, and then the state AG came in for charges. So there are always more bites of the apple, and we have to take them.
So, Robert, if he put everything in and it was an investigatory grand jury or the preliminary hearing, he gets all the facts in and the judge dismisses it or the grand jury dismisses it, what's your argument then? Are you at peace as a lawyer that everything's been done, or is there still no justice for Breonna Taylor?
We'll have a full public airing of the facts. People know, instead of having these secret hearings, these secret chambers where we don't know what evidence was produced, we're counting on leaks from grand jurors and unprecedented court hearings to find out. The entire basis of our criminal justice system is getting out of that concept of a star chamber, getting out of those medieval inquisitionary tactics where we have no idea what justice actually is. If Lady Liberty, if the scales of justice are going to be blind, then there has to be a public accounting of what happened, testimony, evidence, and then we can accept that decision. But what we can't accept is you never even tried to prosecute these people because politically you want to be the next Supreme Court justice for Donald Trump, or you want to take Mitch McConnell's seat, so you'll let these officers go and let Breonna Taylor die in vain. That is not how our system is built.
That Kelly,
I agree.
What Daniel Cameron did was a path of least resistance.
No, he absolutely did that, and I agree with Robert here. And I'm a lawyer as well. I just do not lawyer. But
Smart lady.
Good idea.
I'm sorry. Hold up. I'm a lawyer, but I don't lawyer.
I work in policy. I'm not in court.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm trying to figure out what the hell that meant.
Roland, leave her
They
alone.
understood the joke.
There
They
you go.
understood the joke.
You started
JD is a very broad
already.
degree.
She said I'm a lawyer. I don't lawyer. I just want to know what the hell that means.
We knew what it meant. Keep
Well,
going.
hey, Scott, it ain't your show, so it don't matter what you think.
Here we go.
I want to clarify that for the audience. Kelly, go.
It's clarified now, right? But no, I wanted to echo Robert's sentiment here, specifically when it comes to grand jury proceedings. As the saying goes, you can indict a ham sandwich at a grand jury proceeding. And that means that the prosecutor is literally at liberty to give everything, the kitchen sink, the whole infrastructure of the house, to the grand jury. And they are able to come up with the case and build the case in front of the grand jury. And the grand jury, it more or less is supposed to follow. So that's why this is so infuriating to myself and plenty of other people, especially in the legal community, because we know how easy it is to get an indictment in front of a grand jury. All the prosecutor has to do is to present the evidence, all of it, and the charges, all of them, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to get it. So what is so frustrating here is the fact that, like Robert said, he didn't even try. That wasn't even presented. He didn't give the kitchen sink. He barely gave a fork to this grand jury in terms of what this case is about. So that's what the frustrating thing is here. And that's why we are calling for either a new grand jury or a preliminary hearing, and specifically a special prosecutor who is not Daniel Cameron.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Black-owned businesses here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We certainly want to thank people at civic.com for being one of our partners. It is a black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. And they have 2 great products. You see this virtual reality headset here. That's what it looks like right here, where you're able to place your cell phone right in here to watch their virtual reality content, 360-degree video, amazing clarity. You can actually get this as well. Plus, they're a 360-degree 4D headphones. These, of course, great for gaming. Has a headset that comes with it as well. You can also Bluetooth, some music and videos, gaming, all of that. And so you can get these at seek.com. You can also, of course, subscribe to their content, ceek.com. Use the promo code RMVIP2020 right here. The promo code RMVIP2020 to get one of both of these items from seek.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Go to the FBI headquarters right now.
Enforcement communities to ensure that the 2020 elections are the safest and most secure in our nation's history. We take that mandate and responsibility seriously. There is nothing more sacred in our republic than the fundamental democratic principle of one person, one vote. It is our duty to ensure the sanctity of U.S. elections. That includes ensuring the security of voting systems. The intelligence community's role is to identify threats and to assess the intentions, capabilities, and actions of foreign adversaries. our duty also includes empowering the American people to understand information, or perhaps more accurately, disinformation, that they are seeing, particularly on the internet, and make informed decisions for themselves. With that in mind, we would like to alert the public that we have identified that 2 foreign actors, Iran and Russia, have taken specific actions to influence public opinion relating to our elections. First, we have confirmed that some voter registration information has been obtained by Iran and separately by Russia. This data can be used by foreign actors to attempt to communicate false information to registered voters that they hope will cause confusion, sow chaos, and undermine your confidence in American democracy. To that end, we have already seen Iran sending spoofed emails designed to intimidate voters, incite social unrest, and damage President Trump. You may have seen some reporting on this in the last 24 hours, or you may have even been one of the recipients of those emails. Additionally, Iran is distributing other content to include a video that implies that individuals could cast fraudulent ballots, even from overseas. This video and any claims about such allegedly fraudulent ballots are not true. These actions are desperate attempts by desperate adversaries. Even if the adversaries pursue further attempts to intimidate or attempt to undermine voter confidence, know that our election systems are resilient, and you can be confident your votes are secure. Although we have not seen the same actions from Russia, we are aware that they have obtained some voter information just as they did in 2016. Rest assured that we are prepared for the possibility of actions by those hostile to democracy. The great women and men of the intelligence community caught this activity immediately, and our colleagues at FBI and DHS acted swiftly in response to this threat. We are standing before you now to give you the confidence that we are on top of this and providing you with the most powerful weapon we have to combat these efforts: the truth, information. We ask every American to do their part to defend against those who wish us harm. The way you do that is quite simple. Do not allow these efforts to have their intended effect. If you receive an intimidating or manipulative email in your inbox, don't be alarmed and do not spread it. This is not a partisan issue. I've had conversations today with members of Congress from both sides of the aisle, and there is complete unanimity in the U.S. government in our resolve to combat the enemies of freedom. The President has instructed me to keep the public informed as appropriate, and you have my commitment that I will continue to do exactly that with transparency and with candor. We will not tolerate foreign.
We're going to step away here. Robert, real quick here to our panel discussing in Nigeria. Hold on one second. Robert, you hear them say Iran was using information to target Trump. I did not hear him say that Russia was obtaining information to hurt Biden.
Yeah, and I think that was very interesting. And also what they're accusing the Iranians and the Russians of doing sounds like what President Trump does at just about every rally he goes to. So I think we're going to get more information on this. But as far as the spread of disinformation over the internet, that's standard campaign operating procedure, it seems like, this year, whether we're talking about drinking bleach or injecting Lysol or swallowing light bulbs, those sorts of things. So it'll be interesting to find out exactly what the content of that disinformation is. We've already seen the president president instruct his people to monitor the polls, and there have been letters and emails sent out to that effect saying that there will be armed poll watchers as attempted voter intimidation. So I would like to see exactly what the FBI is investigating and what exactly the new rules are going to be for the last 12 days.
That's why I just find it very interesting here, Scott. Again, where he was very specific, saying Iran obtained voter information to sow seeds of discontent to hurt Trump, but he did not say what Russia was doing and who they were trying to help or hurt.
Yeah, this is coming from this administration. Roland, as I was listening to it, I kept thinking to myself, okay, how is this going to help Trump? I thought about Barack Obama in 2016, when this information was held allegedly by the Democratic White House. But,
no. Actually, no. There's no allegedly. It was held. What President Barack Obama wanted was consensus from everybody on the House side and the Senate side. It was Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell who said no, and so Obama chose to listen to him. I wish he didn't.
Exactly. So I was thinking through this, and then you had to cut away. All righty. One, is it believable, or is there something more than what we've known about, given all the investigations and the reports we have? But secondly, how does this help Trump? Because Trump only thinks about Trump, and how is he going to spin it? How are the Dems going to spin it? But it's not really the Dems. How are the Republicans going to spin it? Because they're in trouble. I think we need to stay tuned and really try to digest and get more information on this. But this is an American democracy issue,
right? But
it's coming from the Trump administration, and so we have to be wary.
And look, it's coming from them, Kelly. But again, I'm listening very closely to what is said. When you stand there and when you say, oh, Iran, because remember, Donald Trump's constant deal is, it's not Russia, it's Iran, right. It's China, it's everyone else. He doesn't want the criticism solely on Russia. So to listen to the head of intelligence for the FBI say, Iran specifically was trying to sow seeds of discontent and defamation to hurt Trump. He doesn't say what Russia was doing for it. That's problematic with the announcement there, Kelly.
Yep.
No, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I was also listening pretty closely to exactly how things were said, and it was definitely downplayed. The Russia interference was definitely downplayed in that press conference as opposed to the Iranian alleged interference. And considering what they are alleging Iran to be doing regarding said interference, I would not be surprised if within the next 24 to 48 hours we see a tweet from Trump or one of his affiliates alleging and accusing the Biden campaign of being in cahoots or collaborating or conspiring with Iran to try and win an election in Biden's favor. Of course, I do not believe that would be the case. I don't think that would be the truth whatsoever. However, I do think that Trump is not above anything at this point to try and win and gain some type of ground regarding this campaign, because every poll, not that I adhere too much to poll life, but every poll out there right now is saying that Biden is up by quite a bit.
Got it.
And he's certainly being outspent 3-1. So anything, especially before the debate, anything necessary or, just picking at straws here for the Trump administration and his campaign to try and possibly grasp something to put a ding in the armor of the Biden campaign, they're definitely going to do that. So I'm not necessarily looking at this as truthful as, we should be looking at it. But
Roland,
yeah, 20 seconds.
Blames Iran. You think he blames Iran if he loses, or he blames Iran for affecting our American democracy?
Look. He will blame a 5-year-old child. At the end of the day, he'll do that. So it doesn't matter. But the whole point here is that he has never liked criticism directly of Russia and their involvement in the 2016 election or in 2020. And he's always trying to say it's somebody else as well. So when the FBI comes out and says, here's what we found, it's clear as like, okay, they're trying to help this candidate. All I'm simply saying is, I heard him say Iran is sending out misinformation to hurt Trump. He did not say Russia is sending out misinformation to hurt. He didn't say that. And that's part of the problem here. If you don't say who Russia is trying to hurt, because he's trying to hurt Biden to help Trump. What does that mean? That means that Russia wants to see Trump elected. That's all the simple thing I'm saying. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Black-owned businesses here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We certainly want to thank people at civic.com for being one of our partners. It is a black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. And they have two great products. You see this virtual reality headset here. That's what it looks like right here, where you're able to place your cell phone right in here to watch their virtual reality content, 360-degree video, amazing clarity. You can actually get this as well. Plus, they're a 360-degree 4D headphones. These, of course, great for gaming. Has a headset that comes with it as well. You can also Bluetooth, some music and videos, gaming, all of that. And so you can get these at seek.com. You can also, of course, subscribe to their content, ceek.com. Use the promo code RMVIP2020 right here. The promo code RMVIP2020 to get one of both of these items from seek.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Let's talk about politics, and that is Senator Doug Jones, the only Democratic senator from the Deep South, is running for a full term against former football coach Tommy Tuberville, who, frankly, is just, when I say stuck on stupid, I'm just gonna say stuck on stupid. I got no problem saying it. This man has. I don't care what none of y'all say. I ain't about to be impartial, objective at all. This man has no business being in the United States Senate. Do y'all have the audio of when they were discussing the Voting Rights Act? Do y'all have that? Okay. To everybody listening, I want you to undergird yourself to one of the dumbest answers you have ever heard in somebody discussing the Voting Rights Act, which was born out of the black belt in Alabama that this fool Tommy Tuberville wants to represent. Play this.
The thing about the Voting Rights Act is it's, there's a lot of different things you can look at it as. Who's it going to help? What direction do we need to go with it? I think it's important that with everything we do, we keep secure. We keep an eye on it. It's run by our government, and it's run to the point that it's got structure to it. It's like education. I mean, it's got to have structure. Now, for some reason, we look at things to change, to think we're going to make it better, but we better do a lot of work on it before we make that change.
What the hell was he talking about, Senator Jones?
You got me, Roland. I mean, I just got to be honest with you. I have yet to figure it out. And I guess the reason I can't figure it out is because he can't figure it out. He has no idea. He has no clue of what he was talking about. And that quite frankly, I think that once that become public, that is why he is completely underground. He is not talking to the media. He's not talking to the people of Alabama. He is not doing anything but 30-second TV ads.
The thing here is the man wants to be the United States Senator from Alabama. What the hell has he done other than coach football?
Well, he's actually done a few things that are not so good. He coached football, but he quit those last 4 jobs. He tried to run a hedge fund for a year between his Auburn job and Texas Tech. Got money, millions of dollars with him and a partner for people investing, telling those folks that he was going to watch over their money, review their investments and all. Then he quit on them, went to Texas, and guess what happened? His partner embezzled all the money, and he ended up getting sued. He had to settle with the investors. He quit on everybody. That's the main thing. He's even, he's got a chair there that he raises money for, supposedly for veterans. But the records show that out of every dollar he's raised, only 18 cents go to veterans. So that's the record that he's got to deal with. And he's not engaged. He's not trying to be a U.S. Senator. And I think the very fact that non-answer on the voting rights should just disqualify him from being a U.S. Senator from Alabama, even being a U.S. Senate candidate from Alabama.
And what I need people to understand, and is it resonating there? Because we're talking about Alabama. We're talking about Birmingham. We're talking about Montgomery bus boycott. We're talking about Selma. We're talking about Bloody Sunday. We're talking about, again, folk who put it on the line, the foot soldiers. And it has to be shocking, stunning, and embarrassing to them to have somebody who clearly has no damn clue what the Voting Rights Act is, and he is going to be their representative in the U.S. Senate? One of the two?
It's I tell you, it's energizing a lot of people to get out to vote. You know, we got some early voting going on now in Alabama. It's an absentee ballot process, but we got folks engaged in getting out to vote in record numbers. There's some things going on even on a Saturday tomorrow here in Birmingham, Jefferson County. So it's energized a lot of people. And for a lot of other folks, it's just got folks scratching their head about why does he really want to do this? You know, he hadn't even lived in Alabama. And he's just moved to Alabama 18 months ago as an ego trip to run for the United States Senate. So there's a lot of things out there, Roland. People are beginning as wait. Well, hold up.
He has only lived in Alabama for the last 18 months?
Yeah, that's right. No, he lived in Alabama from like 1999 to 2008. He's not born here, never lived in Alabama until he started coaching at Auburn. As soon as he left and quit coaching at Auburn, he stayed around for another year running that hedge fund, then moved to Texas, then moved to Cincinnati. And then after that, he's got a big old house down on Santa Rosa Beach. He's had a lake house, a vacation property that he sold a couple of years in Alabama. But he's not lived in Alabama and moved to Alabama literally to run for the United States Senate just about, I guess it's about 2 years ago now. He didn't even vote in Alabama in 2018. When the election was held in 2018, he was not a registered voter in the state of Alabama. And that's a fact. He just moved to run for the Senate. This is a kind of an ego trip. And you know me, you and I've talked about this. I'm born and bred here, lived here all my life. And Alabama runs deep in my blood. And it's really kind of shocking that he would come and try to do this. But the fact is, we're okay. We're moving in the right direction. This race feels so much like it did in 2017 when we ultimately won that race.
This is, again, as and Mustafa and Michael prepare your questions for Senator Doug Jones, the thing that I still grapple with, and I get it. I get Alabama is deep red, but at some point, common sense has to set in. Y'all haven't had any debates, right?
No. He will not. He didn't even debate Jeff Sessions. And if he's not going to debate Sessions, he's sure as hell not going to debate me. He's not only not debating now, I'm telling you, this guy's staying underground. They've got him. You remember the old Get Smart show? You know,
yep.
You know, in the cone of silence.
Yeah.
They have him in a cone of silence because he is not talking to the media. Even when he goes to some of his own Republican clubs, they don't let him speak to the group. He just kind of works the crowd a little bit and shakes hands. And it's because of that Voting Rights Act and because that's going to be his non-answer to just about any substantive question that he gets. His only message is, I support Donald Trump. That's just it. And we're out there every day. We're out there doing shows like yours. I've been all day today on the phone with media interviews all day long today because, people ask me about the media. The question that media phrases, what do you make of him not talking to the media? And I said, well, wait a minute. It's not that he's not talking to the media. You guys are the microphones to the public. He's not talking to the people of Alabama when he's not talking to the media. And I think that that's really important. And people are beginning to take notice. They're wondering, why is he even here? Why is he running for this office? What's up with this guy?
Mustafa, you got a question for Senator Doug Jones?
Yes, Senator Jones, thank you for being a champion for civil rights because I know your record over the years. My question for you is, what is your vision for Alabama?
Oh, my vision for Alabama is one of an inclusive society. And I think we proved that. I think we proved in 2017 that Alabama has got our best foot forward that people a lot around the country hadn't always seen. They think about us sometimes in old days in black and white images, but there's so many incredible things going on in the state. It's a state of incredible diversity and natural resources. We've got a good business climate for folks, but we've got a good working climate for folks. And so my vision is to really represent that. That's why my campaign slogan is One Alabama, so that folks know when they've got a United States senator, I'm not representing just a privileged few. I'm representing all Alabama. And it doesn't matter if I am going down in the black belt of Alabama, waiting around to try to make sure that the sewer sanitation and the septic tanks down there are working properly and putting money in the federal budget to do that, or I'm going up to Huntsville, Alabama at Redstone Arsenal to watch test fire for the next engines that's going to take a rocket and a man to the moon. That's Alabama. It's an amazing place. And my vision is to make sure that we put those divisions of the past behind us and that we unify together and we come out as one Alabama. I've said many times, and Roland has heard me say it, so many of our divisions in the country started in the South, but we can be the place of healing and reconciliation and going forward, and that's what I've tried to do.
Michael, your question for Senator Doug Jones.
Hello, Senator Doug Jones. This is Michael Imhotep. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Well, look, I covered your senatorial campaign in 2017 for 910 AM WFDF here in Detroit, reported on it. Had a quick question for you. In 2017, it was African Americans who mobilized, organized, registered to vote, and came out and supported you, men and women. How have your policies been able to help African Americans, help their conditions, et cetera? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Great question, and thank you for asking about that. But I'm going to tell you, Michael, I got to say this before we start. I noticed when I was watching you guys talk before I came on, you had those two Muhammad Ali pictures right behind you, including the one where you're standing over Sonny Liston. I want you to know that just over here to my left, I've got that photograph in a big gosh, it's probably a 20 by 30, or maybe it's an 11, something like that. But it's autographed. And it's autographed, and it's an amazing signature. He autographed it, Muhammad Ali, after me, there will never be another. And then he did a little boxing ring in it. It is one of my prized, memorabilia collections. So I just had to say that first. So what have we done? And look, we've been there a lot. I mean, I'm not one of those guys that doesn't understand and appreciate folks that supported you. And one of the first things I did, and I alluded to it a minute ago, right after I took office, was taking a tour down in the Black Belt area to see some just unbelievable conditions where people are straight piping sewer into the woods, where septic tanks are so bad that it bubbles up, where kids are playing. There's a hookworm problem down there. And so one of the things that we were able to do that year is get up several $100 million in for grant monies that people can apply for. And they're doing that now to try to help those systems. The other thing that I've done, and I'm very incredibly proud of this, I've been a real champion for historically black colleges and universities. We have 14 in the state of Alabama. We've got more than any state in the country. And I have been a strong proponent. The first year in the Senate, Kamala Harris and I teamed up. We got a 14% increase in funding for HBCUs that year, another 14% the next year. And then in December of 2019, we were able to get the Futures Act across the finish line for permanent funding for HBCUs. So we're giving folks an opportunity. And part of it is, I can't get everything accomplished like the voting rights extension that I want to do. I can't get so many bills done because McConnell won't bring them to the floor. But I've got a number of bills where I've been an advocate for maternal health, infant mortality, because you all know that affects the black community more than anybody else. So an advocate for rural hospitals, increased access to health care, expanding Medicaid. Part of my job is to have a bully pulpit to talk and be an advocate. And those are the kind of things that we've been doing. And folks know it. They see it. They hear it. I think we're going to have a great turnout. We're having great turnouts already, but by the time the votes are all counted, we're going to have a great turnout for this election.
Are you getting support from the Democrat Democratic Party, they've often written off the South. Reverend Barber and others have said you're guaranteed to lose if you never actually campaign there. What are polls looking like? Fundraising, those critical things.
Well, fundraising has gone well. I wish I could say it's gone as well as Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, but that's just out in the stratosphere. But it's gone well. We've been up and doing a lot of things. Let me talk about the party first. There's been, Tom Perez and I talk a lot, and he has been trying to do a lot of help. My colleagues in the Senate, individually, my colleagues have been awesome. They've been great. I've been disappointed in the DSCC and others because I think they're just looking at weird analytics that don't have any relevance to what's going on the ground. And then I'm not going to tell you anything different that I've said to them. It's been disappointing because I'm going to tell you, Roland, our tracking polling that we're showing is really strong. We are showing a tight race, which we always knew, and we're doing tracking every day. And we've got a poll that we just kind of put up today that showed that I had a 1-point lead in this. Now that, things are fluid. We know that. But every demographic is moving our way. Everything that we're seeing, and when people are asked about who can do the best job on the pandemic, on healthcare, on different things like that, I am way ahead of him. I'm way ahead in independents, those that are voting early. And on the experience question, it's really lopsided when they said who's got the experience to be a United States Senator. So our polling has us right there ahead, all within the margin of error, of course, and that's why fundraising is so important for us in these final 2 weeks, so we can stay up. But we feel really good about where we are right now, and I'm excited about what we're seeing in our tracking polls every day, because I've told folks we're going to prove these damn pundits wrong again, and I'm going to let them argue that Doug Jones can't win a race again all the time up until November 3rd when I give my victory speech once again.
Well, I think it's pretty stupid that if Democrats actually think that they'll be able to win, you got to actually run. And whether we're talking about Alabama, same thing. Mike Espy is down 1 point to Cindy Hyde-Smith. Right. She won't even debate him. And the DSCC is doing the exact same thing. He just released some fundraising numbers, best ever as well, because other people out there are pushing it. I mean, he only lost by 68,000 votes in 2018. And I argued then that the Democrats should have been actually on the ground, working it, finding 70, 80,000 people to pick up in 2020, but you got to put the work in. You can't do it just during a campaign season. You got to do it in the off season as well.
That's exactly right. And we've been doing that. And so we're going at it hard, and we've had the resources that we've been able to do it. We can always use more because right now in the last 2 weeks, it's going to be that ground game and get out the vote efforts. I will tell you the Alabama Democratic Party has reached out to close to 2 million people right now, and they've touched hundreds of thousands of people, and we're feeling that energy. We see it. It's reflected in those pollings, and I think everything is moving in the direction that we want to see it move in. And because, politics is a funny business. As folks focus in on the election, they focus in on who's going to best lead them, who's going to best have their back. Not the back of Donald Trump, not the back even of Joe Biden, but the backs of the people of Alabama. And that's where I've got the record that I'm really proud of, and I think people see that.
All right. Well, for all the folks who watch our show, tell your family members they're in Alabama, get registered, vote. It's important. Use the power of the ballot, and don't assume. And I've seen this, Senator Doug Jones. I've had some black people say, well, I live in Alabama. My vote doesn't count. Your vote definitely doesn't count if you never cast it.
That's exactly right. And Roland, you're absolutely right about that. And all you got to do is look in the camera right now. I am exhibit A of what happens when you get out to vote. That's what happened. Good things happen when we can get out and vote in numbers. So you're absolutely right. Don't sit back. Get your friends, get your neighbors, and everybody in your family. Let's get out the vote because we've got the numbers to do it for sure.
All right, Senator Doug Jones of Alabama. We surely appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, the folks at Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They, of course, a virtual reality company. You can check out their content at Seek.com, CEEK.com. You can do so, of course, with these VR headsets. You can look at it, of course, on your regular device or your pad or your computer. But if you want to experience being in the room, you can use this headset right here. All you simply do is just pop in your cell phone in here, pop it on, and then put this headset on, and you can literally experience their content in virtual reality. And so allows for you to do a 360-degree view of the room. But also, folks, they have the 360-degree 4D headphones right here. These are Bluetooth headphones. They have complete surround sound in terms of as you hear the particular music. Gamers love them as well when they're playing their games. And so it's just phenomenal bass in these headphones as well. You can get one or both devices at Seek.com using this promo code RMVIP 2020, RMVIP 2020. So we certainly thank the folks at Seek.com for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Folks, during this election season, you have seen a number of video clips and also memes and quotes of James Baldwin, someone who was very vocal about fighting for freedom for black folks in this country. In his latest New York Times bestseller, Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own, Princeton professor of African American Studies and MSNBC contributor Eddie Glaude Jr. looks at James Baldwin's life and work and relates it to the world we're living in right now. Eddie Glaude Jr., glad to have you on the show. Eddie, when we think about what Baldwin said, I often say when you look at King's book, Chaos or Community, where do we go from here, Chaos or Community, that you literally, if you just listen to what he says and writes and what King writes, you swear they're talking about 2020 and not 1965, 67, or 68.
Absolutely. Particularly Baldwin responding to the country's betrayal. You know, when we talk about 63 and 64 and 65, March on Washington, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act. But, 68, as you know, Roland, this is the election of Richard Nixon. By 72, re-election. What do you get? You get the hard hat rebellion. You get the so-called forgotten American, the silent majority. You get the debates around school busing, the violence in Boston and the like. So Jimmy lives long enough to see the country turn its back. And in some ways, Roland, after the assassination of Dr. King in April of 68, he collapses. He tries to commit suicide in 1969. So he has to try to figure out how to pick up the pieces. And this is why, 1972 in his important book, No Name in the Street, is so important to me, because it's a book that's really centered around trauma, wound, and trying to answer the question, now, how do we pick up the pieces and roll this damn boulder up the hill again?
We are engaged in a very vigorous battle here. We are seeing the results. I used the hashtag we tried to tell you in terms of what Donald Trump was going to be. I have seen a lot of the social media posts where folks have been blasting you, saying, look, you argued in 2016, you were on my TV One show, News One Now, for folks to leave the top of the ballot empty because with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I've seen you respond to folks. So talk about that. Talk about what you wrote in your book in 2016 and what you're writing in your book now. And do you still believe that was a smart analysis in 2016, or was there a mistake because of what we now see?
Right. So what I wrote in 2016 in Democracy in Black was, look, the Democratic Party every 2-4 years, they come to us. They don't really present a detailed platform, at least in my view, and they kind of take us for granted, and they try to herd us to the polls like cattle chewing cud. And I was saying I thought we had an opportunity. I thought we had a window coming out of the Obama administration and the Republican Party nominating someone who was obviously not qualified, I thought we had a window to push the party left. So I said, look, if the Democratic Party doesn't come come correctly, we should blank out, leave the presidential ballot blank, and vote down ballot. Once they nominated Donald Trump, and I began to see what they were doing, I co-authored a piece with the political theorist or political scientist Fred Harris out of Columbia in Time magazine, saying, look, if you're in a battleground state, vote for Hillary Clinton. But if you're not, you can vote your conscience. And this is what this might look like come the convention time. Now, look, I did a couple of things wrong there. I overestimated white folks. That's the first thing. I never thought white folks would elect someone who was so clearly incompetent.
Really?
In this moment. That was a gross error.
I overestimate them. because Eddie, here's the deal though. I mean, look, you teach history. In all of American history, white success has always been followed by white backlash. I mean, we can go Reconstruction. We can go 92 years of Jim Crow. We can go. I mean, at each step, black success economically, lynching. We can talk about again what takes place. We can go 13 years of civil rights, black freedom movement. Then we go through desegregation, white backlash. Black mayors in 1970s. All of a sudden, success. Boom. Reagan 1980, white backlash. Again, Obama gets elected. 8 years, black president, boom, white backlash. I mean, that's been the history of black folks in America.
Right. So I mean, I understood that, right? I understood that very clearly. What I was thinking, though, is that here's the Republican Party nominating someone. So I think the backlash was already, well, I don't like to use the language backlash. White supremacy was already rearing its head aggressively before they nominated Donald Trump. We got the vitriol of the Tea Party. We got voter ID laws and voter suppression running rampant throughout the country. We know this, right? But when they nominated someone, a reality television show, a TV actor, when they nominated someone so grossly unqualified, someone who was clearly unprepared, and in some ways, Roland, not in some ways, was too stupid to be the president of the United States, I thought we had an opening. So in Begin Again, what I do is I write I basically said I made a mistake. I made an egregious error. I should have known better. I should have known better on a number of different levels. But the main thing is Baldwin confronted something similar that I was confronting when Clinton was running in 2016. Baldwin, remember, most people think of Jimmy Carter as this extraordinary president for black folk. But in the 1979 campaign and 1980 election, black folk were lukewarm about Carter. He had basically turned his back on us. Some black leaders actually said he had become he had betrayed black people with his policies of austerity that impacted black communities, particularly in cities. And so what you saw was a depressed voter turnout. And in some ways, the fact that black folk didn't turn out led to Ronald Reagan being elected. But Baldwin writes a piece where he says, sometimes you don't have anybody to vote for. Sometimes you're only voting to buy yourself some time. And in Begin Again, I said I should have known, given that I'm a lifelong reader of Baldwin, I should have known that lesson. And I made a mistake, and I admit it.
One of my panel, I want y'all to get ready to ask questions of Eddie Glaude. Eddie, and folks, again, put the book up again. We're talking about Eddie Glaude's a new book, New York Times bestseller, book that brings James Baldwin in real life. Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and its urgent lessons for our own. One of the things that jumps out at me, and this is when I listen to people talk about this country, and people say, look, it is what it is, it's never going to change. Right. I remember reading interviewing Harry Belafonte, and one of the things he said to me was, he said, this is the reason I have stayed. He said, because essentially I am going to fight to make America be the country it says it's supposed to be. Baldwin confronted that very question. And black folks have always been the ones to save them from itself. Black folks have been the ones to actually show America what democracy looks like, show America what compassion looks like, show America what forgiveness looks like. And so what do you say, though, reflecting through the prism of Baldwin, to young voters who say, I don't believe that my vote can make a difference. And so I'm and fight for change, but I'm going to check out of the voting process, even though the marching I'm voting for is to get the politicians to change policy, but I'm going to check out of the very system that can elect folk who agree with me. It's like those two things are at war with each other.
Right. I think this is the important point. I think oftentimes when we hear that sort of argument, there is a judgment, and it's a substantive and reasoned judgment, I think, at times, that the political system is bankrupt, that it's not really delivering anything for Black and poor people, that we have politicians who we elect, who then turn around and become captured by the political process, that we are a captured electorate. I can go on and on and on. What we need to understand is that the vote is one of the most important tools in our political arsenal. It is not the only tool, though. So every 2-4 years, there are elections at the national level. Every year, more than likely, there's an election. Every other year, there's an election at the local and state level. And part of what we need to understand is that politics involves electoral processes, but it's not reducible to those processes. So if we're thinking about change systemically, we need to understand that voting is a part of it. But when we overburden voting, and what I mean by that is that when we think about wholesale change being reducible to the vote, then we set ourselves up for disappointment. Voting in a democracy, Roland, in my view, is actually the last thing we do. Prior to the election, we are engaged in the work of trying to build the society that we want to build, in trying to create the conditions to produce the sorts of people we want to elect and hold accountable. So we have to see voting. This is what I'm saying to young folks. We have to see voting within the overall strategy of our attempt to build a genuine, just democracy. But I understand why they're skeptical. But the skepticism shouldn't lead to a dismissal of the vote as such. It should lead to a dismissal of a certain frame of understanding the role and place of the vote, if that makes sense.
Do you also believe that we also have a massive, massive failure when it comes to civics? That part of this issue is that we have folks who have no clue. And should the solution be, look, the school system is not going to do it. You're at what I call the end of the education process. You have your primary, your secondary, elementary school, middle school, high school, then you have college. And so should Black communities, Black churches, Black organizations be leading massive civic engagement workshops and discussions? And two, and there's no disrespect to MSNBC or CNN or Fox News or ABC, NBC, CBS, but they're not going to do it. I'm just being honest. Shouldn't we also be challenging and calling out Black targeted and Black owned media, saying, are y'all going to keep spending all of this damn time on sitcoms, reality shows, award shows, and entertainment and gossip and sports, and dedicate something to civics, to public affairs, so our folks are not only becoming aware of issues around an election? Your thoughts on that?
Yes, and yes. I mean, I can only say yes so many times, right? So I think, whether it's Nkrumah's conscientization, whether it's political education or the like, it is certainly the case that, we need to understand more fully, I think, the complexities and nuances of the political process, of the pursuit of power in the name of justice, of, in some ways, the power of everyday ordinary people. And the example I have in my head, of course, is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and what they did at their height and how they entered into spaces, sharecroppers in Mississippi and the like, and created the conditions under which they could become the leaders that they were looking for, as Ms. Baker would put it, right? How they would then run for office, but understood that running for office can present the danger of demobilizing grassroots efforts. But all of this was bound up rather, in an idea of the power of everyday ordinary people. Freedom schools in another instance, right? I think this is really important, Roland, because you hit it right on the head. The second point I think is really important in the sense that what we've witnessed is in some ways the contraction of public deliberative space. Black-owned media, I mean, it can't just be Twitter. It can't just be social media, right? We've reduced the kinds of spaces where there's serious conversations about us by us. And I think it's really important for us to continue to bring pressure to bear to create spaces for your show and others that are dedicated, not just simply to and the entertainment industry or sport, but really thinking seriously about the conditions, material and otherwise, of Black communities in a moment where we face extraordinary danger that's not just reducible to Donald Trump. So I think you're absolutely right on both accounts, Roland.
I want to go to my panel for questions. I'll first start with Teresa Lundy.
One, I can't wait to get your book. I've been excited about this conversation. So as a millennial, I'm always curious about what we can do to further the dialogue and civic engagement, and also imploring that our fellow friends and neighbors are also aware of how important our voice is, but more so important of our history.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sister Teresa, for that. Look, millennials combined with Gen Zers and Gen Xers and Gen Yers, you guys actually outnumber baby boomers in terms of the impact on the body politic. I think it's well past time for this cohort to begin to influence and impact the direction of the country. I think there's a general consensus among your generation and younger that the country is broken. And you're reaching for languages, vocabularies, ways of thinking that offer a different direction for how we might imagine being together as a country. Jimmy insisted that we work for a new Jerusalem. And I think it is well past time for millennials to assert their power in the public domain. And that's going to have to happen, not just simply in terms of election cycle, but it's happening in the streets, it's happening in the suites, it's happening in terms of your consumer power across the board. And so you got to start exercising and exerting your influence and power at this moment, right now, in this moment, right here.
Next question, Cleo Monago.
Greetings, brothers. Good to meet you.
Greetings, brother.
I have an analysis that I would like to get your perspective on, but I want to also just preface it with the fact that the myth of white supremacy on a systemic basis is perpetually moving the pole and working towards staying in power, and doesn't have just one strategy. They have many, many strategies. And it's my perspective that we have not been equally strategic as a people so we could actually win going in the future. However, obviously you are going into the past when you write about Jimmy, because Jimmy is a person who lived in the past, and I guess you bring in him into contemporary life to bring the relevance of that. Earlier, I'm not sure if you were around when I was talking with Dr. Malveaux, and she talked about what women have gone through, and I want to get your analysis on this. It's my perspective that today's young men live in a different world. They don't live in a world that is as blatantly patriarchal and disrespectful of women in terms of the dismissal of them as the civil rights movement was. They live in another reality where there's all kinds of different gender this and gender that, and women doing things. And the reality is not the same, and they're ahistorical. Is it your perspective from your experience with these young people that they are ahistorical? It's my perspective that they're ahistorical, so they don't relate to the framework that Dr. Malveaux is talking about in terms of, talking about black men now, in terms of how sexist black men were. They're looking at their current reality, which feels and looks different, and do not have a perspective of a harsh patriarchal past. What is your perspective of that? And the strategy issue.
Yeah, I would not describe these young folk as ahistorical. I think many of them are definitely trying to connect their particular movement with a tradition that constitutes the wind beneath their wings. I think that many of the young leaders of Black Lives Matter, for example. And remember, Black Lives Matter is a complex phenomenon. It's not just one thing. It's like Black Power. There were a number of different organizations that fell under the rubric of Black Power. Black Lives Matter is similar. There are a number of different organizations that fall under that label or that slogan, but it's a sentiment that cuts across all of the different political formations. But I think a lot of these young folk, especially young leaders, those who are part of this movement, understand that there has been a kind of patriarchal bias that have defined the model of Black leadership, that there's been a kind of hypermasculinity that has undermined the pursuit of justice, that these gender norms kind of constrain and lock us in. So even as they're inheriting the grandness of the tradition, they're bringing critique to bear, right? So when you read, this is not your grandma, this is not your mother's movement, sometimes that reveals a kind of ignorance, but other times it also reveals a kind of criticism, a way of distancing from a certain model of leadership that I think is really important. So, in Begin Again, I start chapter 1 with Jimmy in a meeting, with Baldwin in a meeting with SNCC students at Howard. And they were chopping it up until the sun came up. And Baldwin said to them at the end, he said, "What I ask you that you promise your elder brother that you don't believe what the world says about you. And I promise you that I will never betray you." And when Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, wrote his autobiography with Michael Thelwell, he said Baldwin never betrayed them. My relationship to the young organizers and activists is that we need to support, we need to offer our encouragement, we need to be in solidarity with them, and create the conditions under which, or help create the conditions under which, together with them, we can bring about a more just world. So they're challenging in the streets. Some of them are challenging politically as they organize, but I don't think they're ahistorical, if I understand your question, Doc. I don't think they're ahistorical, at least not all of them.
Julian Malvo.
Hey, Eddie, how you doing? It's good to see you.
Hey, Julie, good to see you.
I'm a big Baldwin fan. Love him, love him, love him. So I'm looking forward to seeing your book. And when you talk about him chopping it up all night, I don't have time to share the story about how I met him in a bar in New York. And we ended up getting put out the bar and sat on a park bench and continued the conversation. Because the brother really could talk. One of my favorite Baldwin things is the collection of essays, The Price of the Ticket. And the title essay, The Price of the Ticket, really talks about what white people give up in order to be white. In other words, that they give up their nationality, they give up, in order to be white, they have to shrug off their Irishness or their Italianness or all of those things. And I think that he had a profound understanding of whiteness in a way that many African-American people and scholars do not. And in that understanding of whiteness, I think that perhaps where some of his despair actually came from. Now, he wasn't consistently despair, but you get some despairing moments in some of his essays. So my question to you, in terms of that particular essay and others, which would your top 3 Baldwin essays be that you would suggest every young person and not so young person read?
Wow, that's a hard one. But let me just say this, Julian, you're absolutely right, Dr. Malvo, right? So at the heart of Baldwin's corpus is what I call this revolutionary inversion. And that is, he's going to insist that the problem ain't us. The problem ain't Black people, right? To put it in my Mississippi way, right? I never thought of myself as the N-word. You called me the N-word. And the question you need to figure out is, why did you need the N-word in the first place?
Come on.
So then he says, I'm going to give the N-word back to you. And then ask the question, who's really the N-word, baby? Right? So Baldwin flips it. That's really key. So the problem ain't us. It's this conception of whiteness that's rooted in this belief that because one is white, one ought to be valued more than others. And until we uproot that, we're going to find ourselves on this racial hamster wheel over and over and over again. So the 2 or 3 essays that I would suggest, of course, Fire Next Time is really important. White Man's Guilt, 1965 Ebony piece, is critical for his understanding of history. But let's just put Fire Next Time aside. So I would go White Man's Guilt, As Much Truth as One Could Bear, is a wonderful essay written in 62. And then I would say read To Crush a Serpent, which was the last essay published in Playboy magazine, where Baldwin goes at the evangelical right, the moral majority, and offers a vision of salvation and love that is so profound that it's an extraordinary sermon that I think suggests what he was thinking about as the cancer was ravaging his body. So I would say, again, as much truth as one could bear, White Man's Guilt, and To Crush a Serpent. But ask me tomorrow, I might give you 3 different ones.
I can't read your book.
Eddie, last question for you.
Sure.
And that is, I want to get your perspective on, everybody's been weighing in on my interview with Ice Cube, talking about his contract with Black America, having a conversation with the Trump folks as well. Want to get your thoughts on that. And there are those who say we should not be criticizing him. There are others who say he was wrong as well. I'm of the opinion, first of all, no one is beyond criticism. I've gotten criticized from different people as well. The moment you choose to step into the political arena, you're going to make yourself susceptible to criticism. Just your thoughts on what you've heard and all these different things around that issue.
You know, Roland, at the heart of it is a problematic conception of leadership. You know, Du Bois worried about it in Souls of Black Folk. He says when leadership is chosen from outside of our community, right, it undermines the very democratic process. He was referring to Booker T. Washington in that extraordinary essay of Mr. Booker T. Washington and others. And so part of what we need to kind of interrogate here, whether you agree with Ice Cube or not, is what is his conception of Black leadership? How is he thinking about his relationship to everyday ordinary folk? What authorizes his voice? Who gives him the power to speak on behalf of X, Y, and Z? And so I think it's really important as we kind of step into this next phase of Black politics, of Black life in this country, that we really give voice to, and Roland, this echoes something we talked about earlier in this segment, we really give voice to a more robust conception of Black deliberative space, where we are actually engaged in vibrant debate about what is best for, Blacks across the country, understanding that folks are going to come at it from different directions. So what bothers me is the hubris evident in the action, right? As if Black folk are just some homogeneous blob that anybody can just step forward and represent. What is Ice Cube's, who is Ice Cube's constituency? Who holds him to account? Who is he responsible to? Right? It goes beyond just simply having a love for Black folk, right? It has it is tied up or bound up with who is one accountable, who are you accountable to and responsible for?
Folks, the book, please show it again, by Eddie Glaude Jr. The book is Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own. The final question I asked is of every book author. I can't believe I forgot about it. Every book author has a wow moment. A wow moment when they're researching a book, when they're writing it, when they're going through things. What was your wow moment when you were writing this where you just went, oh my goodness, wow, that's crazy? What was it?
Oh, wow, so many. There was one. I'm in the Schomburg. I'm in the Schomburg going through Jimmy's papers, right? And there's this. You remember those little memo pads, Roland?
Yep.
And Julianne, where you could write they're about this big, and you could write on them.
Yep.
I come across a little memo where Baldwin, scribbled a note to Robert F. Kennedy after his brother was assassinated, and it's a note on behalf of Harry Belafonte, Lorraine Hansberry, Jerome Smith, all the folks who met with Bobby Kennedy in '63, earlier that year, right? And Baldwin is saying to him, let me grieve with you. Let us grieve with you. We know what the suffering is. That's what we were trying to get you to see. And it's consistent with Jimmy's notion that suffering is the bridge. And I remember reading that in the file and just going, oh my God, this is something else. And it sent me back to, the artist's struggle for integrity. It sent me back to a whole range of essays, but it was it was one of the many wow moments I had, working my way through over 7,000 pages of work.
All right, Eddie Glott Jr. I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Doc. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, the folks at Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They, of course, a virtual reality company. You can check out their content at Seek.com, Seek.com. You can do so, of course, with these VR headsets. You can look at it, of course, on your regular device or your pad or your computer. But if you want to experience being in the room, you can use this headset right here. All you simply do is just pop in your cell phone in here, pop it on, and then put this headset on, and you can literally experience their content in virtual reality. And so allows for you to do a 360-degree view of the room. But also, folks, they have the 360-degree 4D headphones right here. These are Bluetooth headphones. They have complete surround sound in terms of as you hear the particular music. Gamers love them as well when they're playing their games. And so it's just phenomenal bass in these headphones as well. You can get one or both devices at Seek.com using this promo code RMVIP 2020, RMVIP 2020. So we certainly thank the folks at Seek.com for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, last night here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, lots of discussion with regards to my interview with Ice Cube regarding his contract with Black America and the Trump campaign taking credit for saying that he participated in some of that with him. Now, what's real interesting about that is that we had this conversation, this spirited conversation with him and really trying to get to understand what's going on. Well, the folks at Politico dropped a story today laying out what they say is the backstory, where the Trump campaign reached out to him that he did not go to the White House to meet with folks there, but that Cube went to a Washington, D.C. hotel and actually met with Jared Kushner and others. Bottom line, the Trump campaign got exactly what they wanted out of this, and that's one of the things that is important that we talk about here, okay, and that deals with again how the campaigns play, how people roll, and how folks actually operate. And what this story laid out is, look, what the Trump campaign wanted is exactly what they got. That is the PR hit of Ice Cube essentially endorsing Donald Trump's platinum plan. Now, I sent emails to the Trump campaign saying, okay, who do y'all have who can come on to talk about the platinum plan? I'm still waiting. And one of the things that we talked about last night in this plan, which Cube felt was something that they took from his plan, was this right here, where the Trump people said, go to my iPad. President Trump's promise to Black America over 4 years, increase access to capital in Black communities by almost $500 billion. All of the people who I have seen quoting this plan, they've all been saying Trump promised Black people $500 billion. That's what they said. Yet, like I walked y'all through last night, if you actually go through this plan, if you go through it, the only $500 billion number you see deals with the annual $500 billion federal contracting opportunities. Please go to it. So again, you see it right here under jobs, jobs, jobs. If I scroll through, they say invest $20 billion towards broadband internet access. Okay, but that doesn't say it's just to black people. Then they say increase opportunities for small business lending and create generational wealth opportunities with over $400 billion in lending. Well, is that the actual program? Is what they already do. I mean, there you go. Okay, you go down here. Increase the number of black-owned contracting businesses, financial services entities, and private equity investment funds through regulatory reform, and up to $40 billion in government funding alongside traditional private investment. Okay, so are they trying to say that the federal government is going to give $40 billion in government funding to black businesses? Really? Where? Where? Advanced lending relationships with financial institutions. How? How are you going to do that? Okay, let's go through here. Under education, no money. Increase the amount of Pell Grants and allow for vocational employment and second change homecomers. First of all, they can't even spell in their own plan. They can't even spell. I think they meant second chance homeowners. Okay, so let's go over here. All right, I'm walking through this here. I want y'all to I'm walking through this. I want y'all to see this here. I want you to understand what I'm talking about. Right here, affordable care. Money, no. Safe streets, money, no. Prosperous black communities. Champion federal policy reforms to advance home ownership initiatives. I'm sorry, where? Where? I'm going through here. Show me the $500 billion. I want to see it. Show me the proof behind that whole deal. I don't see it. See, this is why y'all got to stop falling for the bumper sticker slogans. Donald Trump puts it big, $500 billion. Folks like, ooh, Trump. It's a lie. It's a lie. They can't back it up. It's a lie. Now, I've had people tell me, and I've had people already hit me up and they go, well, like, I don't understand people who keep saying Joe Biden doesn't have a black plan. Okay, so what is this? The Biden plan for Black America. Okay, so since people want to say that, so let's go through here. So they talk about COVID, they talk about coronavirus, talk about all those different things like that. Okay, so here, invest in African American business and entrepreneurs. They lay out in terms of the approximately 4% of small business owners are African American. They make up 13% of the population. Ensuring equal access to credit. So they lay those things out. Double the funding for state small business credit initiatives. Okay, that's double the funding. That's what it says. Expand the new market tax credit, making the program permanent, and double the community development financial institutions funding. Okay, so they said double the existing funding, and it lays out in here, okay, the actual programs. They're naming the programs. Improve and expand the Small Business Administration programs that most effectively support African American owned businesses. Okay, they lay it right in here. SBA, Trump was going to cut it by 25%. He says it right here. Okay, it's right here. Make permanent the successful Community Advantage Loan Program originally created by the Obama Biden administration. It's right there. Increase opportunities for African American owned businesses to obtain or participate in federal contracts. This is what they say. In the aftermath of the 2008-2009 financial crisis, well over $100 billion of federal prime contracting dollars were awarded to minority-owned businesses. Okay, then they say it increased nearly 30% from $30.6 billion to $39.1 billion. Okay, they explain also that happened under Obama. Then they say increased funding for the Minority Business Development Agency, which actually Trump administration had pushed a 75% cut in the MBDA's budget. Okay, protect small disadvantaged businesses with state contract from federal and state contract bundling, which often locks out African American owned smaller firms from effectively bidding on procurement contracts. Now let me unpack that. Okay, allow me to unpack that. That is the exact, listen to me clearly, y'all, and see, because this is what happens when you don't read and when you don't study and when you don't have any knowledge, and then when you come up with stuff and you haven't even understood what has actually happened. So let me unpack that. So I want you to go back to this, to the iPad, Henry. Protect small and disadvantaged businesses from federal and state contract bundling, which often locks out African-American owned smaller firms from effectively bidding on procurement contracts. Biden will build on the anti-bundling provisions of the Small Business Jobs Act by having the Office of Management and Budget, SBA and MDBA, conduct a government-wide review of existing contract bundling to determine whether agencies are following existing rules and whether agencies have the ability to further ensure small business participation in federal and state procurement opportunities. Now allow me to unpack. In 1973, when Maynard Jackson was elected mayor of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson realized that African Americans were getting 0.0012% of all city contracts with the city of Atlanta. What Maynard Jackson realized when he became mayor is that one of the ways in which black businesses were frozen out of opportunities is that what they did is they said, and this is the rules that are written, in order for you to bid on a prime contract, you need to have been a prime contractor before. Let me repeat that for some of y'all who missed it. In order for you to become a prime contractor, you have to be a prime contractor before, which means that if you are a black business and you do not have the capacity to actually bid on larger contracts, you are always going to remain a small business, which means that you will never have the capacity to be able to grow. So, what did Maynard Jackson do? Maynard Jackson studied these rules. Maynard Jackson then said, what we're going to do is we're going to break up these large contracts into smaller contracts to allow for black-owned businesses to compete for them as prime contracts, okay? Which meant that if you were a black firm, once you were able to get one prime contract, then you now can bid on any prime contract. What Maynard Jackson also did was call the banks into his office and say, you're going to provide credit lines to the black businesses who have city contracts because you know they're going to get paid. They simply can't float their businesses for 180 days. So why is this important? I talked to the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. when Donald Trump became president. And one of their criticisms is that the Trump administration went back to bundling contracts, which meant that African American and other small business owners would not be able to then compete because they can't compete for the big contracts. That, folks, is how we're frozen out. And so here we are having this conversation, talking about plans. Please show me where in Trump's plan there's anything that talks about that very issue. Okay? Go back to the Biden plan. Provide African-American entrepreneurs and other small business owners technical assistance. It lays it out. Reserve, now here's a critical one here. Reserve half of all the new PPP funds for small businesses with 50 employees or less. Got it. All right. Accessing loans. Okay. They talk about supporting African-American churches. Expand African-American home ownership. Biden will invest $640 billion over 10 years so every American has access to housing that is affordable. You got that. Help families buy their first home and build wealth by creating a new refundable, advanceable tax credit of up to $15,000. Tackle racial bias that leads to homes in communities of color being assessed by appraisers below fair value. Y'all, I'm just reading to y'all all the plans. Roll back Trump administration policies, gutting fair lending and fair housing protections, strongly enforce a fair credit reporting laws, and create a new public credit reporting agency. That's all right here in the plan. Protect homeowners and renters from abusive lenders and landlords through a new home ownership and renter bill of rights. It's all right there. Roll back Trump administration policies gutting fair lending and fair housing protections for homeowners. Okay, it's right there. hold financial institutions accountable for discriminatory practices in the housing market. It's right there. Restore the federal government's power to enforce settlements against discriminatory lenders. It's all right there. Strengthen and expand the Community Reinvestment Act to ensure that our nation's banks and bank and non-bank financial services institutions are serving all communities. Eliminate local and state housing regulations that perpetuate discrimination. It's all right there. Increase access to affordable housing. Establish a $100 billion affordable housing fund to construct and upgrade affordable housing. Provide tax incentives for the construction of more affordable housing in communities that need it most. Low-income housing tax credit. Okay? Now, I haven't even read all the things under housing. Let me go back to the Platinum Plan. This is what the Platinum Plan says about housing. Go to my iPad. Champion federal policy reforms to advance home ownership initiatives. That's it. Maybe y'all missed that. Go back. Champion federal policy reforms to advance home ownership initiatives. That's it's. Let me make it bigger. Y'all see that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 words. 9 words on housing. Come back. 9 words on housing. Let me scroll to the top here to just help y'all out. Let me scroll to the top right here. Because I'm trying to show you, what I'm trying to do is show you the contrast. Now, go back. I just read you 9 words in the Trump Platinum Plan. I am on housing. I'm scrolling for you the Biden-Harris plan on housing alone. I'm not done. Right there. When we start to have conversations about what folks are doing and they're not doing, it's important for us to, it's important for us not to get caught up by the okie doke by what somebody throws out. Now, last night, I discussed this as well. A lot of people I hear all the time, the CDC ain't done nothing. I read some of this last night. I'm going to read all of it. Okay? The Congressional Black Caucus sent me this, and they said, here's what we've done and what Ice Cube's contract with Black America says and what Trump's Platinum Plan says. Go to my iPad. Okay? Ice Cube's CBWA calls for ending qualified immunity, banning chokeholds, and the elimination of no-knock warrants. CBC Fact, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which passed the House in June, calls for all of this and more, including a national database to ensure repeat offenders are not hired. But Leader Mitch McConnell has refused to take it up for a vote. Which means that one of the things that Cube has in his CBWA, the CBC has already passed in the House. But the Republicans won't take it up in the Senate. Next item. Trump's Platinum Plan makes Juneteenth a federal holiday. Fact, the bill would have passed, but Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson in July blocked it. Donald Trump didn't say a word. Ice Cube CBWA wants to make anti-lynching bill law. CBC Fact. That was passed in the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill introduced by Representative Bobby Rush. Republicans in the Senate refuse to take it up. Ice Cube's plan calls for baby bonds of $1,000 for all new babies. CBC Fact, this is in the CBC's Jobs and Justice Act which was passed. CBC Ice Cube's plan proposes a plan for neo-reconstruction. CBC says we gave President Trump a 125-page detailed plan to do this in 2017. 4 years later, we've seen nothing. Ice Cube proposes a one-time interest-free home loan for qualified Black Americans. CBC says this plan only addresses access to a loan for certain Black people. It does not address necessary relief provisions to prevent foreclosures and expand forbearance for homeowners. But the CBC Jobs and Justice does. Ice Cube's plan wants a jobs skill training program. The CBC Jobs and Justice Act of 2020 addresses this through businesses contracted to rebuild infrastructure to recruit, actively hire, and provide on-the-job training to African-American men ages 18 to 39 and earn while you learn programs. Ice Cube's contract with Black America, according to the CBC, leaves out many critical areas impacting the Black community, including COVID-19 healthcare response, Black maternal health, environmental justice, all factors to the underlying health causes, support for HBCUs, teaching Black history in schools, increased funding and eliminating barriers to access of funds for small businesses. The Comprehensive Jobs and Justice Act of 2020 does, and we invite him to learn more about our work and help us push this agenda forward. Now, let me explain to you, and this is critically important. What I'm laying out is not a criticism of Ice Cube's plan. What it is actually has been done. That's what I'm laying out. What other entities are doing as well. The real issue that we have here is not who's backing that plan or that plan. The real issue is, are we seeing forward progress on the issues that Black people care about? When you begin to break that thing down, now you begin to realize who's getting played and who isn't. Now you begin to realize who's serious and who isn't. Now I could have gone through, because remember, I told you, the Biden plan is 22 pages long. I encourage you to go to joebiden.com and look it up. But what I need Black people to do is stop getting so caught up in, ooh, they beefing, and this is what they doing, as opposed to saying, how can Ice Cube with his celebrity be a modern day Harry Belafonte, a modern day Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Sidney Poitier, Diane Carroll, Dick Gregory, Paul Robeson, and use celebrity and use his large following to bring attention to plans that don't necessarily get the same amount of attention. That's one. The second piece is Ice Cube is presenting his contract with Black America only in the last 3 months. But there are other initiatives that have been in the pipeline a lot longer. So, what we as Black folks should be doing is identifying what's further along, give those things a push, give them support for them to then become real. So if y'all are caught up in the back and forth and the drama, as opposed to being laser-like focused on how we can move things ahead for African Americans, because this thing is not about who met or didn't meet with Ice Cube. It's not about who met or didn't meet with T.I. It's not, and let me be real clear. I'll put it on the line. Celebrities are not going to lead Black people to the promised land. The folk who will are the very people who do this day in and day out. So what we need celebrities leveraging their celebrity to help those policymakers be able to advance the agenda. Should we listen to them? Absolutely. But what we cannot do is act as if folk ain't been putting in the work all this time. Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network. Mustafa Santiago Ali, PhD, former senior advisor for the Environmental Justice EPA. Rena Shaw, the Lincoln Project Women's Coalition. Michael, I want to start. Mustafa, I'm going to start with you. Just your thoughts on all of this, back and forth. To me, I think it's missing the most important element, and that is, how do we move forward as a collective to achieve what we want to achieve?
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. I mean, we need our creators, but we got to make sure that it's anchored in the experiences and the knowledge that folks who've been doing policy work for a long time have, especially those trusted voices in the policy place. And we also got to use our common sense. I mean, it's not an accident that they call this the Platinum Plan. You know, they understand how our culture works and how we get excited about certain things. But we also got to, once again, use our common sense. If you look at Trump's 2017, 2018, 2019 presidential budgets, they were just talking about slashing all of the programs that are so critical to helping our communities just survive in many instances, not thrive, but to survive. If you want to just pay attention to what's going on in the moment, as you pointed out around the PPP, folks should also be asking the question, why is it that there weren't other directed programs from Trump or the Republicans saying, we know that there are these disproportionate impacts that are happening in this COVID-19 moment to African Americans, the Latinx folks, the indigenous folks, and here are those additional resources and steps to actually help you to protect your lives and to also give you that economic backing that is so critical. When someone doesn't do that, that tells you that you are not a priority for them in the past, in this moment, or in the future because of those resources. And that focus is not there. They also know that disproportionately a whole bunch of us are dying, so there'll be even less of us that are there. So folks just got to spend a little bit of time and actually just unpacking, as you said, the actions of folks. It's like that old saying, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Trump has shown you exactly who he is and who he cares about.
Michael, again, what I don't do, I don't waste my time with gossip.
Exactly.
I saw that dumbass Boyce Watkins somebody sent me a video where he was like, oh, Roland Martin tried to pin Ice Cube down. No, I didn't. We actually were presenting facts. We were discussing the plans. This wasn't, I'm trying to pin Ice. No. My whole deal was, this is what they said, $500 billion for black people. I simply pointed out that was a lie.
Right. Well, first, a few things. One, and I have friends who are on different sides of this equation, so I deal with what I deal with. So let me put it like that. One, I want to thank you for the interview you did yesterday with Ice Cube, okay? Because you allowed Ice Cube to explain his side of what happened, number one. Two, I applaud Ice Cube for pulling together policy experts to put together this agenda. I applaud him for this because he didn't have to do this. And see, one of the things we have to understand is that the hell that he has gotten over the past 48 hours, that'll make the next celebrity who has resources, who really wants to do something to help our people, and they may want to do something even on a larger scale than Ice Cube. They may have all the wherewithal to pull it off, and they may say, well, wait, I saw how they treated Ice Cube, and he was trying to help black people. Okay, so I don't even want to have anything to do with this. Ice Cube is learning, and I think he really means well. But we also have to understand, as I told you last Friday on your show, Roland, Trump's plan is the fool's gold plan. Okay? The Trump campaign is using Ice Cube. Ice Cube, I think, wants to help his people, and he means well. I talked about this last night on my show. One. Two, Biden's plan came out May 4th, 2020. People have to understand this. Okay? I spent 6 weeks on my Sunday night show breaking down. Biden's plan is broken into 6 parts. It's 22 pages. Pages 2 through 11 deal with economic empowerment for African Americans. I spent 6 weeks on my Sunday night show breaking down Biden's plan, and we're going back through doing it again now. This Sunday we're doing part 6 again. So as I said last Friday on your show, Biden's plan is more comprehensive. It's not perfect, but it's more comprehensive. It's more specific. It's much more reasonable than Trump's plan. And what people have to understand also is this timeline. When Ice Cube's representatives, because I read the article from Politico.com that you posted also, and I knew about 2 weeks ago that Ice Cube had met, Ice Cube and or his representatives had met with both camps, because I think it was Billboard had an article about this. So I knew this like 2 weeks ago. When the Trump campaign met with Ice Cube's representatives, they had not released their quote unquote black agenda yet, their platinum plan. They altered it to incorporate some of Ice Cube's contract with Black America. Then they released their 2-page agenda that I call the Fool's Gold Plan. Now, number one, I want to see what it looked like before they incorporated something from Ice Cube's contract with Black America, because it's horrible as it is now, Trump's plan, okay? So then also in the Political article, and Ice Cube explaining what happened as well, he said that the Biden campaign, like they said, about 85% of what's in his contract with Black America, they said we'll deal with that on the other side of the election. It's important for people to understand the Biden campaign had already released their Lift Every Voice plan. That came out May 4th, 2020. Okay, so it was already released when the contract with Black America came out, and some of the things that are in the contract with Black America were already in Biden's plan. But a lot of people don't know Biden has this plan. Even yesterday, reading some of the comments during the on your thread during the interview, a lot of people didn't know Biden had his plan. So the Biden campaign also has to do a better job of really explaining this and putting this out. The
right.
graphics you talked about yesterday, things like this. Yeah, they have to do a better job of doing that also. And they also have on their website, last thing, they also have highlights of the Black agenda and how the agenda empowers Black men as well.
Rena, this whole back and forth, look, you know how Republicans have done things in the past when it comes to Black folks, how the Trump people, they didn't want a serious discussion on this. All they wanted was to be able to say, Ice Cube stamped our plan with his approval.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's totally what happened here, because let's not forget that whole big gaffe. I would say one of the biggest gaffes of this entire campaign that the Trump campaign has loved about Biden is when he went on Charlemagne the God's, what was that, The Breakfast Club, right?
Yep.
And really, you know, those words weren't perfect, but Biden's not known for perfect words. The Trump campaign took that and ran with it. What people don't spend time investigating is the routine amount of misinformation that comes out of Trump's ethnic minority, Black American arm of his campaign. It's all nonsense, Roland. I've looked at this stuff and I'm thinking to myself, these are flat out lies. And so when I look at what Ice Cube did, I think on the one hand, okay, fine. Yeah, here's a big name. They like that. And I think he did have probably the most noble intention going in there, but his contribution was a little too late. And I think that's really what we ought to look at here more than anything else. And then we shift to the facts and we look at really what's at play here. It's really the fact that Trump largely inherited this growing economy from the Obama-Biden administration. And so with COVID, though, the whole thing is turned on its head. And I think that's where we really see this whole situation for what it is, what's happening in Black America. And the reality is that Blacks still continue to be concentrated in low sector jobs, which just don't have adequate health care, paid sick leave. And frankly, they're disproportionately exposed to COVID-19. You think the president cares about any of that? Heck no.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, the folks at Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They, of course, a virtual reality company. You can check out their content at Seek.com, CEEK.com. You can do so, of course, with these VR headsets. You can look at it, of course, on your regular device or your pad or your computer. But if you want to experience being in the room, you can use this headset right here. All you simply do is just pop in your cell phone in here, pop it on, and then put this headset on, and you can literally experience their content in virtual reality. And so allows for you to do a 360-degree view of the room. But also, folks, they have the 360-degree 4D headphones right here. These are Bluetooth headphones. They have complete surround sound in terms of as you hear the particular music. Gamers love them as well when they're playing their games. And so it's just phenomenal bass in these headphones as well. You can get one or both devices at Seek.com using this promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. So we certainly thank the folks at Seek.com for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right.